This is the second half of my historical news and chat episode. If you missed last week's episode, I suggest you go back and start from there. My sister Nikki and author Yvonne Vincent are still my guests as we read an article from way back and give our modern thoughts about it. Today's is a real odd one, so stick around. Welcome to Jacqui Just Chatters. Thank you for joining me. I'm your hostess, Jacqui Lentz, and I'm trying to make the world a little better, one story at a time. Whimsical episodes come out every other Tuesday. What's your story? If you've got one, reach out via my website. Now let's get chatting. Our third one is a lot funnier because I felt like we would need something extra boisterous after our little strychnine saint. This one comes from the Washington Post, May 10, 1914. So again, World War I started July 28th, 1914. So this is just before the war, but again, for Americans, that's Europe's problem.
How kind.
But
Yeah, my granddad was in that war. My granddad was born in 1895 and he was in a Scottish regiment and was off to fight in the trenches and all the rest of it in France. And my dad said that the only thing he ever mentioned really about it was the fact that in the First World War, the Scottish regiments, they wore kilts, and the kilts, the mud would go onto the kilts and it would freeze, and the back of their kilts would hit the back of their legs and chafe the backs of their legs raw, the soldiers. So in World War II, they gave them trousers. They didn't wear the kilts in World War II. But my granddad mentioned the mess that his kilt made of the back of his legs, which is quite sad, really, isn't it? Sorry, just brought the mood right down.
I can bring it down worse. My husband's great uncles both fought in World War I. One joined the Canadians because you could immediately go and serve in Canada where the US was still mobilizing. One brother fought with the US and he got over there later. The other brother got there earlier and served as a Canadian. He lied. He lied and said he was a Canadian, and the Canadians didn't give crap. They're like, excellent, you want to go fight? We'll take you. The one who got in early, he died. He was killed over there. I think it was a bomb got him. And so one came home, one didn't. And his great aunt during World War I, she was part of the YWCA, the Women's Christian Organization, and they created a entertainment troupe to send over to Britain and France because when the war ended, it's not like all the soldiers immediately went home. So there were all these camps of them. So they sent this group of women to play music and entertain the soldiers at the different barracks. And while she was in France, she met up with her brother who was alive. And she also went to the grave of her brother who died.
Wow.
Okay, let's try to turn the ship around a little bit here.
Get off the
death track. Actually, that's funny because I look at the title of the article. Died to catch wife. An amazing trap laid by a suspicious husband who, quote, died in order to gain evidence of his wife's infidelity has been disclosed in a divorce case at Stockholm, Sweden. So right off the bat, when he was like, died in air quotes, something weird's going on. Petitioning for a divorce, Carl Peterson, a wealthy merchant, told the court how, as he lay in his coffin, pretending to be dead, he heard his wife confess her love for another man.
What?
This is his quote. I'm assuming this came from court records. I decided, he said, to play a trick upon her and get whether her love for me would proclaim itself if she thought I was dead, or whether she would then declare her affection for somebody else. My doctor and solicitor both promised to help me in this scheme. Carl continues, On some pretext, I went to my country house, and soon after I got there, the doctor sent a message to my wife saying that I had been taken ill suddenly and was dying. My wife came at once and pretended to be distressed as I lay perfectly still in the darkened bedchamber. I felt, however, that her grief was insincere, and at midnight, when the doctor, in accordance with our arrangement, pronounced me dead, I still thought her sobs were theatrical. Shortly after my death, people are going to say that. Shortly after my death, this happened. Shortly after my death, the solicitor, also in accordance with the arrangement, arrived at the house and made known the contents of my will to my wife. How is she not suspect? He dies, he's not even buried, and they're reading the will. I can't imagine things were
Wealthy.
that efficient.
He's wealthy.
No.
He had his affairs in order.
Maybe.
I
I
it
think
was
she had her affairs in order. So the solicitor arrives at the house and made known the contents of my will to my wife, telling her that all my property had been left to her and that by my special desire, I was to be buried quietly in the local cemetery without any of my friends at Stockholm being informed of the death. Again, it's not a red flag. Like this guy's, oh yeah, I'm super wealthy enough to have a country home and then a home in Stockholm. And he's, oh yeah, just toss me in the ground at the local church. Don't tell anybody. Don't.
He wants to be mysterious, dead and
Very much.
mysterious.
Thus, a coffin was brought to the house, and I was placed in it and carried down to the room where the telephone was. This is weird. No sooner had the doctor and the solicitor left than my wife entered the room and rang up a man, one of my oldest friends. I have splendid news, she told him. My monstrous husband is at last dead. I am free. He has left me all his money, and I shall still love you. Interesting one. Like, I've got all this money. It's okay. I'm still going to love you. What kind of relationship's that?
I don't know, but it was better than in Kalkaska, so we're fine.
Will you come and see me tomorrow? My treacherous friend duly arrived. I had the coffin moved out into the entrance hall. Okay, this coffin's just going around the house again. Like, how is that weird? And as my wife went to greet the man, I saw and heard her kiss him many times. Then it was that with one leap from the coffin, I came to life and moved towards the precious couple.
I think she didn't have a heart attack and die. I would have been like, ah!
I'm trying to imagine the reaction.
I know.
I
Yeah,
know,
sure.
absolutely.
My wife fainted and her companion fled.
Not surprised. I'd run away as well.
I would too. Zombie
Whereas the
apocalypse.
wife didn't. Go ahead, Nick.
I said zombie apocalypse.
As neither the wife nor the correspondent could deny this evidence, the ingenious Peterson was granted a divorce decree.
There must surely have been an easier way to do it than pretend to be dead for a couple of days.
Like, can you imagine? So, like, at some point, he had to eat, he had to pee, he had
Yeah.
to, like,
Yes, inquiring minds need to know, how did he do all the things?
obviously, some staff at his country home had to have been aware of what was going on. Do you know what I mean? So that they could
Yeah.
help, but they didn't deserve mention in the article.
Think about it. Okay, the coffin is in the room with the phone. And then I'm thinking overnight they're going to move the coffin to another room so then he can get up, move around, and do stuff. So he's not.
Yeah.
And then they move it again to the front hall.
They could have just moved it to the front hall and he got out and stayed out for the night and then moved back in, knowing that his wife was going to be coming down. But it's not like his wife was going to move the coffin around and go, oh, this is really light.
My guess is it was always the top wasn't put on because he has to breathe and he has to hear her conversations. And he
But
leapt
also,
out.
yeah, how do you stay still that long as well? He must have practiced loads of breathing where it doesn't look like he's breathing. That's, if I was going to do it, that would be like one of my things I would practice, how to breathe, but without moving my chest.
How long must he have planned this thing out?
It must have
I don't know.
taken, because he would have had to have persuaded his solicitor and his doctor to be on side. Presumably, he paid them for these services. And yeah, he would have had to have planned what to do with all the staff, because they were clearly quite wealthy. If they've got a telephone in those days, they clearly
Right.
weren't badly off. And so there must have been some servants.
I would have thought strange that he's the only one that's going to be the witness for his side of the case. He would have had his solicitor or doctor, somebody in the background somewhere also seeing and hearing this to verify what happened.
Yeah, because he could say
Obviously,
anything he likes.
Exactly.
he
could go-
obviously must have thought that she was having an affair, but he didn't know who and he couldn't figure out how. But don't you think that's what telephone operators are for? Someone could have listened in on the phone. You didn't
Mm.
need to like have your pretend dead body in the room. You could have had someone on the receiver.
I'm just trying to think, yeah, because he must, you're right, he must have had somebody there to verify it, simply because otherwise, what is the point of going through all the charade of pretending to be dead? Because if you just make it up as you go along and just say, I heard them say that, then you pretty much could say that anytime without having to go through all the dead thing.
Right. And I just think it's
bizarre, absolutely bizarre.
and I love how he accuses her that her sobs were theatrical. I'm like, dude, you way past her in the theatrical category a mile back.
It does not surprise me though that she passed out. Seriously. I could easily see being so frightened you just pass out. Like when your dead husband just jumps out of the casket, I might freak.
And he doesn't sit up or, oh no, he's leaping out.
He leaps out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be a bit scared.
Honestly, that's the whole reason why he did it. It was just for that. It was
think it
not to
was.
catch them. It was to make them pay.
The thing is, if your husband is horrible enough to do that to you and frighten you so badly, then when she called him a monster, she was probably right. My monstrous husband. Because a normal person doesn't do things like that.
No.
No, she deserved some
good guy.
payment.
They both are twisted. And honestly, yeah, she's probably less twisted of the two. She's just doing a normal affair.
Yeah, she's just a healthy woman following her heart. He's some sort of psycho.
That is my last story. I hope you two had a good time with this historical adventure.
It was
Yes.
so interesting. It was absolutely fascinating.
Wacky, but fascinating.
Yeah.
Good. That's exactly what I want. Thank you both for coming on. Nikki, it is, as always, been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And Yvonne, it was fantabulous. Totally made up word. I don't care. I'm going to make them up. To have you here for the first time and enjoy this like little weird historical treasure trove.
I really enjoyed it. I've learned things.
Were we as good as the BBC?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, just as brilliant.
I have to say, I'm a little nervous about what you learned. Like all of a sudden, is your husband going to come home one day and find you dead in a coffin?
Or the other way, she's just going to
No.
kill off the husband with the strychnine.
There's always the strychnine. Plan B.
Capsules on the table. They're supposed to make you feel more stimulated.
Because the last thing we need is an overstimulated husband.
That's a good point to end on. We're gonna end there. Thank you so much. These 2 episodes have been a real blast for me. I want to thank Nikki and Yvonne once again for coming on and making me laugh so much. I've got links in the episode notes, including my socials, so you can head over there and share your thoughts about what you heard. Thank you all for spending time with me. You are a delight. Until next time, I wish you well.